Anything you'd like us to add to research about you?
Yes, there is. Thank you for asking that. One of the elements that was very, very important to me, I told them earlier that I'm a Chicano. I grew up working with a Chicano community. And then as I worked more and more, I realized that there were a lot more people involved in the quest for justice than just Chicanos. So I reached out to African American communities, Native American communities, Native, Asian, and white folk who were involved in justice issues. And I became very committed to multiracial, multi-ethnic justice. Very committed. Some of my Chicano friends would have preferred that I focus just on Chicanos, but I felt that I needed to work with everyone, and that I needed to help others bring all those communities together to work together in the quest for justice. One of those early attempts was in 1977. Were you guys born then?
1977?
Right. I, along with some friends, called together the first conference, probably in the country, I don't know, it's hard to say, on immigration issues. Because, immigration is really big now. It was even bigger then. Deportations were taking place all the time. Harassment was taking place all the time. Young families were sent back. You realize now that the new law that the president presented, kids who were born here and or have gone to school here from Mexico, for instance, or any other country, can now remain here. And so something we found as well. At that time, that wasn't enough. So we brought together hundreds of people to try to see how we could impact legislation and the policy of immigration to protect folk. We had two of those conferences in Berkeley, bringing together people from all over the country to see if we could make some impact. So that was very important. One of the things we discovered that we weren't the only community that was facing immigration problems. So the next gathering we included Pacific and Asian American people, because at that time the Philippine people had a lot of problems with immigration, and other places had the same thing. So it doesn't take much to realize that even if you start with a small focus or a smaller focus, you start realizing, wow, this is bigger than us. If you remember Martin Luther, raise your hand if you remember Martin Luther King Jr. Yeah. Oh, good. I don't know if you realize that the later part of his years, he was greatly criticized because supposedly he started including, no, not supposedly, he did include other people in his quest for freedom, including he became anti-Vietnamese War. And so some of his supporters thought that was taking away focus from his major work in the African American community. But as he taught us, he said, everyone who suffers injustice is my brother and my sister. And that's a great learning that I took to heart. So that if you look at the people I work with now, they come from everywhere in the world. They come from all of the community. And that makes me richer than anything I know. I learn more from them. It's really funny that you asked me to sit here, because the people who should be sitting around this table are the people who've taught me, who've mentored me over the years on how to really see justice as an international, universal issue, not just as a focus, my community issue. So I think, thanks for giving me the opportunity to expand on that, because that's very, very important. That's what I want to teach my kids and my grandkids, is that it's about us, not about me. Me being my family or even my racial ethnic community.
How did you like going to the University of California?
Let me tell you, that was an experience that I will always be thankful for. I went to school in 1956. Again, I think that was before your parents were born. And at that time, we lived in a very, very conservative nation. Very conservative. I was telling the group earlier that at that time, the Brown Education Act in 1954 by the Supreme Court eliminated segregated schools. I went to segregated schools in my early years. Pomona. Well, that act eliminated. And the Freedom Riders, remember? What's her name? She wouldn't sit at the back of the bus.
Rosa Parks.
Yeah, thank you. My memory's not as good. All that was starting in the 1950s. Martin Luther King was starting to work along with a whole bunch of other folk. We knew nothing about that in my high school. Nothing. I mean, nothing in my town. I mean, I don't even think it was carried in the newspapers. We were so ignorant. And when I got to Berkeley, oh my Lord, they were not ignorant about anything. They knew what was happening. They were passionate about it. And that's when the movement started in Berkeley. And so I became part of that. In early 1960s, the Freedom Riders to the South began. Many of my friends went there to stand with the people, the African Americans who were really being brutally treated. And so that said, wow, it wasn't just Chicanos, because in California, Chicanos were treated like dirt for many decades. And I said, it happens to every night. I thought we were the only ones who had to sit in the balcony. Then I learned all about the Jim Crow laws, which was even worse. You know, separate drinking fountain, separate bathroom. My gosh, it just opened up my mind and started to see there's a sister community that suffers as much as we do, if not more. And I said, I have to be supportive. I have to be part of this movement. So I began to help as much as I could, along with some of my friends. And I was telling them earlier some of the things we did. I worked with the Black Panther Party. Are you familiar with that?
Black Panther sounds familiar.
Yeah. It started in Oakland, California. I was working in West Oakland at the time in a basically African American community and Latino community, basically with gang kids, with gangsters. And some of our kids became the ones who founded the Black Panther Party. In fact, one of my colleagues, who was an Episcopalian priest, became the minister of religion for the Black Panther Party, which was incredible. Now, yeah, the Black Panthers did something that maybe were not very wise, but they were advocating for their community. They were fighting to protect the community from police action or from policies that were not appropriate. And as bad as people think the Portland police are, they don't come close to what the Oakland police were at that time. Just brutal. So we were trying to help defend. We worked with the Panthers, we worked with other community groups. At that time, the clergy, ministers, and community were like that. You couldn't separate us because we were all marching together, we were all demonstrating together, we were all going to City Hall together, demanding justice for the people. And I had the privilege of being asked by the African American people that I was working with to be a liaison between the communities, the Chicano community and the African American community. And I was able to do that. I was able to bring to the table leadership from those communities so they could start working together. Remember I said how important it is to work together?
Yeah.
Well, that's where we started working together. And then we decided, you know what? There's still other partners around the table we need to find. So the Native American people, we invited them in. Then we invited Asian Americans and Pacific Islander Americans, whoever was in the quest for freedom. We had women around, because at that time the women's movement was just starting to go. And let me tell you, it was hard working with them because we were guilty of sexism as much as anybody. Yet we knew that their quest for freedom was as important as ours, so we invited them to the table, and they taught us a lot. Because they needed to slap our face a couple of times just so we would get our priorities straight in terms of how to treat women on an equal basis. And that was another great learning, which I owe my sisters tremendously, because they told me that you can't really be in the quest for freedom without making sure that everybody's quest for freedom is honored. Are you familiar with the 12-step program?
The 12.
It's for basically any addiction. Started with alcohol. 12 steps means there are 12 steps to
Being done drinking?
Yeah, to control your drinking. Well, I utilize 12 step in terms of my work in racial justice. And by that I mean that I know that in here because of my living in a country that has institutional racism all over the place, in schools, in business, all over the place. I have been impacted by that. So there are some racist things in here, that are there because they've been put in there. So how do I deal with it? By taking on the 12-step approach, to acknowledge the fact that I'm a racist, and I want to quit being a racist. And so I'm on a recovery road in terms of my racism. You know, I've decided to be disciplined about how I can't eliminate it from my system, but I can control it, and I can focus and commit myself to justice issues. So that's what I teach folk, is that, you know, we're not asking for you to become instantly converted. I'm free of all racism. If I go around this room, I bet each one of us has a little bit of prejudice towards somebody, for one reason or another, you know, fair or unfair. We have a little bit of prejudice.
That's what my teacher said.
Yeah, you know, and we've learned that the hard way, you know. So I'm not saying we eliminate that. I'm saying let's acknowledge it, and then let's deal with it, and then let's deal with it together, and then we can help one another do it. So that's been a very important of my commitment, which is to bring all the community together. So right now, I meet with Muslim community. We've been working for since 9/11, right? Trying to educate folk about what it is to be a Muslim in this country, and what it is to be a Christian, what it is to be a Jewish person, what it is to be any of the members. And we're trying to get them engaged in the justice issue, racial justice issues of the community. That's very important. So that's one thing. The other thing which I didn't say, did I say it to you about? Yeah, I did. The police plan to eliminate institutional racism. You weren't here for that. But right now, I was a member of the Human Rights Commission, and my work through that meant working with the police department, and we've helped develop a plan to eliminate institutional racism in the police department over the next 5 years. So that's huge. That's really huge. Anyway.
Who has inspired you over the years?
Oh my gosh! Well, Martin Luther King Jr. I had the privilege of being his chauffeur when he would come to Northern California. Because remember, I worked with that Alamo black and brown clergy, 54 African American clergy, and one Chicano with me. And one of my jobs was to be supporting to whatever this group did. And that meant that I volunteered to go pick up people from the airport as they would come to meet with the broader community. And Martin Luther King Jr. came several times, and I had the privilege of being his chauffeur. Marvelous. And to be in the presence of a man like that. I had the privilege of doing the same thing for a man called Howard Thurman. I don't know if you've ever heard that name, but he's a great African-American spiritual leader in this country. We brought in Native American Indians to Berkeley, and I got to be with them in all sorts of discussions like that. People like Russell Means, Native American Indian, member of American Indian Movement, people like Nicholas Benton, people like, well, I'll tell you one who inspires me right now is Danita Fry, who works at the NAYA, Native American Youth Association, right down in Columbia.
Yeah.
She inspires me greatly. Other heroes that well, Cesar Chavez, of course. In terms of women, there's a number of people, most of that you have not heard because they weren't in the national spotlight, but there's many women. My wife is one of my greatest mentors, Lynn Smiles Lopez. She's a pastor at Ainsworth United Church of Christ. She really should be around this table way before I am, because she's been arrested for her stance on justice issues. She fights for gay rights. She fights for racial rights. She fights for immigration rights. She takes her church with her. So it's not just one person, but she takes the community. Anyway, she's a mentor. Wazi Saeed from the Muslim community is one of my heroes. Tom Potter, mayor of the city, who put together